Pick up your dirty money and get out. This place is not for people like you." The words tore through the cafe louder than the espresso machine, sharper than the slam of a till drawer. Customers froze, eyes snapping toward the counter where a middle-aged manager in a crisp blouse and apron leaned over, her voice dripping with disdain. At her feet, bills fluttered across the white tile floor like discarded trash, scattered around a young black man in a blue hoodie. One hand on his briefcase, one knee on the ground, he looked calm, too calm, as if this moment was familiar. The silence in the room was heavy, charged, and everyone knew it was about to break. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we are glad you are here. Now, back to him. The cafe buzzed with whispers. A police officer already stood near the doorway, radio pressed to his lips, ready to escalate. Behind the manager, a row of baristas watched, some uncomfortable, some smirking like the humiliation was routine. A young woman at a corner table gripped her phone, recording quietly, her eyes wide with outrage. The manager's voice rose again, fueled by the silence of her staff and the growing tension of the crowd. "Every week it is the same," she sneered. "Men like you coming in here flashing bills thinking you can scam your way into respect. Not today." The insult landed harder than the scattered cash. Around the room, customers shifted in their seats. A mother pulled her child closer. A man in a suit shook his head but said nothing. Some watched with suspicion, others with unease, but no one moved to intervene. Through it all, he did not raise his voice. He did not protest. Instead, he reached slowly for a fallen bill, his movement deliberate, steady, almost ritualistic. His eyes did not rise to meet hers, but the quiet control in his posture spoke louder than anger ever could. It was not submission, it was patience. Patience that promised a storm was coming. And in that silence, the air shifted, because this was not the story of a man caught stealing. This was the story of a man being erased again, and the people in that cafe had no idea who he really was. The officer's radio crackled, a harsh sound cutting into the tension. He pressed it closer to his mouth. "We may have a situation. Possible theft in progress." His words echoed through the room, magnified by the silence of witnesses who were not sure what they were seeing. To most, it looked like a man on one knee beside spilled bills, a picture framed to suggest guilt. To him, it was a replay of a life he had endured too many times. The manager's tone sharpened. She jabbed her finger toward him like it was a weapon. "Do you know what this looks like? Crawling on the floor for money that is not yours? You embarrass yourself. You embarrass this establishment." Her words stung the air, designed to strip dignity. A few customers let out nervous laughs, not because it was funny, but because discomfort begged for release. Others shook their heads, whispering under their breath, as if deciding whether they were watching justice or cruelty. He gathered another bill, folded it carefully, and placed it back inside his case. His hands were steady, his eyes calm. That steadiness unsettled the manager more than any outburst would have. "Why are you so quiet?" she snapped. "Say something. Or are you guilty like I think?" From the far side of the cafe, a young woman could not stay silent. She raised her phone higher, recording without shame. "This is not right," she said aloud, her voice trembling but clear enough to carry. The officer turned, frowning. "Ma'am, stay out of this." But it was too late. The words had pierced the stillness, planting doubt in the crowd. An elderly man near the counter muttered, "I have never seen anything like this." A college student at a corner table whispered to his friend, "He just walked in, ordered coffee, and now this?" The cafe was dividing, line by line, between those who accepted the accusation and those who began to question it. The manager leaned even closer, her voice low but venomous. "You people always think money can buy your way in, but this place has standards." The phrase, "you people," hung in the air like smoke, unmistakable and ugly. Several customers gasped. One woman set down her cup with a sharp clink, staring at the manager as if she had gone too far. Still, the man in the blue hoodie did not rise to her bait. He stayed grounded, his posture unshaken. Inside, he carried the memory of a hotel lobby years ago, where he was told his card must have been stolen. He carried the sting of a dealership where a salesman laughed when he asked about the top model. The same script, different stage. The officer took a step forward, one hand brushing the metal cuffs on his belt. "Sir, I need you to stand. The moment teetered on the edge of escalation. The crowd held its breath. And then he lifted his head, his eyes steady as stone. The patience was running thin. Something deeper was about to surface. The officer's hand lingered over the cuffs, the metallic glint catching the cafe lights. He spoke louder this time, his tone official, rehearsed. Sir, you need to comply immediately. Stand up and face the counter. The room grew tighter, the silence filled with expectation, as if everyone present had already chosen sides without even knowing the truth. The manager folded her arms, lips curling into a smirk. Finally, she said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. You are about to learn that people like you cannot just stroll into places like this and pretend to belong. Her words were meant to seal the verdict before the officer even moved. A sentence written not in law, but in prejudice. He stood slowly, not rushed, not afraid. The blue hoodie fell loosely over his frame, his grip on the black leather case firm but unthreatening. His height surprised some of the customers who had assumed submission meant smallness. When his eyes met the officer's, they were steady, not pleading. The officer hesitated just for a moment, then repeated, "This is your last warning." A customer in the back raised her voice, unable to stay silent. "He has done nothing wrong. He just ordered coffee." Heads turned sharply. A younger man at another table added, "I saw him pay. I saw the change." She threw it on the floor. His phone was still raised, recording. The crowd was shifting again, no longer unanimous. Doubt cracked the surface of authority. The manager slammed her palm on the counter. "Do not listen to them. They are trying to stir trouble. This man is a liar and a thief." The words bounced off the tiled walls, raw and bitter. But the sound of disbelief in the audience was louder. A murmur rolled across the cafe like an incoming wave. He adjusted the strap of his case and finally spoke, his voice low, resonant, cutting through the air like steel. "If you truly believed I was a thief, you would not need to scream. Your voice betrays your fear." The sentence hung there, not shouted, not embellished, but absolute. Several customers gasped. The officer's hand pulled back slightly from his cuffs. The manager's face flushed red. "Fear? You think I am afraid of you?" She leaned forward, eyes sharp with rage. "The only thing I fear is letting someone like you fool real customers into believing you deserve to be here." The weight of those words filled the cafe, pressing down on everyone listening. A mother near the window covered her child's ears. The young woman filming whispered into her phone, "This is more than a misunderstanding. This is racism, right in front of us." And still, he did not shout. He did not move in anger. He simply stood, anchored like stone, the storm gathering behind his silence. Every insult, every glare, every accusation was fuel. They thought they were closing in on him. But the truth was, he was closing in on them. He stood rooted to the floor, his silence weighing heavier than any protest could. The officer shifted uneasily, caught between procedure and the unsettling calm of the man before him. Around them, the cafe hummed with divided whispers, tension snapping at the edges of every breath. The manager, emboldened by the pause, pushed harder. She leaned forward across the counter, her words sharpened into daggers. "Look at him, not even denying it. That is what guilt looks like, a thief caught in the act." Her voice rang across the cafe, seeking to drag everyone into agreement. Some customers nodded, eager to believe the performance. Others frowned, the cracks in her story beginning to show. He bent slightly, not rushed, and picked up one last bill from the tiled floor. He placed it gently into his case, then closed the latch with a deliberate click. The sound cut through the room like a gavel. He did not need to argue. He did not need to beg. His patience was its own testimony. A young woman at the corner table clenched her fists. Her voice quivered, but it was strong enough to carry. "You do not know him. You are humiliating someone who has done nothing wrong," the officer barked back. "Ma'am, sit down and remain quiet." But the shift had begun. Her courage pulled others closer to the edge. A man in a gray suit cleared his throat. "I saw what happened. He paid." She dropped the change on the floor. His voice was reluctant, as if defying the manager cost him something. Still, it added weight. The crowd murmured louder. The manager slammed her hand on the counter again, desperate to regain control. "Enough! Do not be fooled by this act. This man is dangerous. People like him always are. That is why I called for backup." Her words cracked the air, steeped in venom. "People like him." The phrase struck deeper than the accusation itself. A hush fell across the cafe, followed by audible gasps. He lifted his gaze at last, eyes sharp, voice calm but resonant. You mistake quiet for weakness. That will be your last mistake. The line landed like thunder. A ripple spread across the room, a shift no one could ignore. The officer hesitated, hand dropping from his cuffs. He looked around, uneasy, reading the room as much as the man before him. Doubt had entered his stance. The manager hissed, "Do not listen to him. He is nobody." But even she felt the floor shifting beneath her. Her words no longer held the same power. The calm of the man in the blue hoodie was not surrender. It was a storm waiting to be unleashed, and everyone present could feel the air changing. The cafe had turned into a theater, every eye fixed on the standoff. The manager's voice had grown harsher, but the cracks in her authority were showing. Customers whispered to each other, the tension buzzing like static. Some pulled out phones not just to record, but to live stream. The story was no longer confined to four walls. At a small table near the door, a young college student finally raised his voice. "This is wrong. He paid. Everyone saw it." His phone camera caught the manager's scowl, her eyes narrowing as if his defiance betrayed her. The student did not lower his hand. "If you keep pushing this, the whole world is going to see what you are doing." The officer turned toward the student, his voice stern. "Put the phone away. Do not interfere with police procedure." But the words fell flat. The officer himself looked uncertain, glancing back toward the calm figure in the blue hoodie. A mother with her daughter spoke up from a nearby booth. "My child just asked me why he is being treated like a criminal. I do not know what to tell her." Her voice cracked. The little girl stared wide-eyed at the man, clutching her mother's hand. The innocence in that gaze cut deeper than any accusation could. The manager snapped, her tone venomous. "Do not turn this into a spectacle. This man is a fraud. He is here to take advantage of us." She gestured at the bills still scattered near the counter, as if the mess itself was proof of guilt. "Look at that. Does that look like a real customer to you?" The man in the hoodie finally lifted his chin, his voice calm but steady. "I look like exactly who I am, and that is what you cannot stand." He did not shout. He did not rush. Yet his words rang out as if they were amplified by something larger than volume. A young barista who had been silent until now stepped forward from behind the counter. Her hands trembled, but her voice carried. "I rang up his order. The payment cleared. He did nothing wrong." The cafe froze. Even the officer turned his head sharply, eyes narrowing at the sudden testimony. The manager spun toward the barista, furious. "Do not lie for him. Do not risk your job." But the young woman did not back down. "The risk is pretending I did not see what I saw." Ugh. Gasps rippled through the cafe. For the first time, the balance shifted visibly. Customers leaned in, whispering louder now, some nodding, some standing. One man near the back clapped his hands together once, sharp, as if to punctuate the moment. The manager's face drained of color. She realized control was slipping from her hands. And in the center of it all, the man in the blue hoodie stood tall, silent, letting the voices of others rise like a tide. For the first time, she was the one on trial. The cafe was no longer just a room. It was a courtroom, with witnesses standing to testify and a crowd ready to pass judgment. Every second the manager opened her mouth, she sank deeper into her own quicksand. Her eyes darted to the barista who had dared to speak. "You are finished here," she snapped, her voice breaking. "Pack your things after this shift. You will not work another day in this place." The young woman trembled, but she did not retreat. "If telling the truth costs me my job, then so be it." Her words landed with the weight of a hammer. Murmurs swelled into a wave. Someone near the window said, "She is standing up for what is right." Another voice from the back called, "We all saw it. He paid." The officer rubbed the back of his neck, his authority slipping in plain sight. "Everyone calm down," he ordered, but his tone lacked conviction. He looked at the manager, then at the man in the blue hoodie. Doubt was written across his face. The manager pounded the counter again, desperate to recapture the narrative. "This is exactly why rules exist. People like him," she spat the words with venom, "think they can stroll in, act entitled, and then turn the crowd against authority. But not today." That phrase, "people like him," did not just hang in the air. It poisoned it. A collective gasp rippled through the room. A man in a gray suit stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Say that again," he demanded, his face twisted with disgust. "You are not even hiding it anymore." A woman holding a stroller pulled her child closer, her voice steady but loud enough for all to hear. My father went through this exact humiliation 30 years ago, and you are still doing it now? Shame on you. The manager faltered, her cheeks red, her eyes darting around as though searching for an ally. But the room had turned. Where once she commanded silence, now every whisper, every glare, every phone camera pointed directly at her. The man in the hoodie remained still, his calm becoming unbearable for those who had condemned him. He finally spoke again, his words measured like stone placed with intent. You accused me, you tried to erase me, but the more you speak, the more you reveal yourself. The silence afterward was deafening. It was not weakness in his voice, it was the sound of control slipping from her hands into his. The officer dropped his hand from the cuffs completely. His radio buzzed at his hip, but he ignored it. His gaze shifted toward the manager, the unspoken question clear. Who was really at fault here? The cafe felt different now. The crowd was no longer watching a man on trial. They were watching a system unravel in real time. And the manager's fear was no longer hidden. It was painted across her face for all to see. The officer's hand finally left the cuffs, but the damage had already been done. The cafe was electric, every eye fixed on the man in the blue hoodie, waiting to see what he would do next. The manager's breathing quickened, sharp and uneven, as if she felt the walls closing in. And then she made her most reckless move yet. She reached into the register, pulled out another handful of bills, and hurled them across the counter. The cash fluttered to the floor, landing around his shoes like an accusation made visible. There, she barked, her face twisted in anger. Caught red-handed, proof for everyone to see, a thief crawling for scraps. The crowd gasped in unison. A teenage boy filming whispered into his phone, "She just threw money at him." An older woman near the door shook her head, whispering to her friend, "That is not proof. That is cruelty." The officer stepped forward again, clearly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, stop. This is not procedure." But she ignored him, her voice growing louder, desperate to control the narrative. "Look at him, picking money off the ground like an animal. Do you still believe he belongs here?" The man in the hoodie bent down once more, but this time his movements were deliberate, precise. He gathered the bills one by one, not hurried, not ashamed. He placed them back into his case and clicked it shut with the same steady finality as before. Then he rose to his full height, taller than most expected, his calm presence towering over her fury. He spoke quietly, but the room heard every word. "Money on the floor does not define me, but throwing it there defines you." The line cut through the cafe sharper than any shout could. Several customers applauded softly, their claps hesitant at first, then growing bolder. The manager's face burned red. She snapped at the crowd. "Stop clapping! Stop defending him! He is a liar!" Her voice cracked, her authority unraveling with each syllable. The young barista who had spoken earlier stepped out from behind the counter. She pointed directly at the manager, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "You are humiliating him in public. You are humiliating all of us who work here. I will not be part of it." The cafe erupted in murmurs, some voices angry, others supportive, but no one indifferent. For the first time, the manager looked small behind the counter she once commanded like a throne. The man in the hoodie stood silent, his composure radiating power. He did not need to argue. He did not need to defend himself. The room was already doing it for him. The more she shouted, the more her authority crumbled. And yet the officer still hovered uncertainly, his hand twitching near his radio, torn between a false accusation and the storm of witnesses rising against it. The tension was no longer about a spilled handful of bills. It was about dignity. It was about truth. And everyone knew the next move would determine which side of history they were standing on. The cafe was no longer humming with the routine noise of coffee grinders and clinking cups. It was buzzing with something heavier, sharper, undeniable. The air itself felt like it was holding its breath. The manager, desperate and unraveling, glared at the man in the blue hoodie as if rage alone could bend reality to her will. But then, for the first time, he moved with intent. He placed his briefcase on the counter, unlatched it, and drew out a sleek black phone. The crowd leaned in, sensing the shift. His voice was low, even, unshaken. "Initiate protocol." On the other end, a woman's calm and professional tone answered instantly, carried on speaker for the entire cafe to hear. "Yes, sir." Internal systems are live. Security cameras are now streaming. Incident log has begun. Her efficiency was unnerving. The words landed like a judge's gavel. The manager's smirk faltered. "Who are you talking to?" she snapped. "Some fake assistant? Do not try to scare us." The officer glanced at the phone, uncertain, his authority slipping further. Customers whispered louder now, a ripple of recognition spreading. One man muttered, "That sounded official." A college student whispered, "He has someone on call. This is not normal." The calm voice on the phone continued. "Surveillance confirms. We have full visual of the floor. Timestamp initiated. All employee conduct is being logged." The barista who had spoken earlier gasped, her eyes widening. She looked at the manager, then back at him. The manager barked, her desperation bleeding through every word. "This is a stunt. Do not fall for it. He is nobody. He is pretending." He finally turned his gaze fully on her, his voice steady, sharp enough to slice through her denial. "If I were nobody, why would you feel so threatened?" The silence afterward was heavy, broken only by the sound of chairs scraping as more customers stood, phones lifted higher. They were no longer just watching. They were documenting history unfold. The officer adjusted his stance, his radio buzzing again at his side. He hesitated, then stepped back slightly, no longer certain he had the authority to act. The manager's fury cracked into panic. She pounded the counter once more, her voice shrill. "Get him out of here! Arrest him!" But the tide had turned. The crowd murmured in open defiance. A woman near the front declared, "You cannot arrest someone for being calm." Another man shouted, "He has every right to stand here." The voice on the phone came through again, smooth and unwavering. "Sir, protocol has escalated. All relevant data has been transferred to the ownership files. Do you wish to proceed to confirmation?" The man in the blue hoodie nodded once, his eyes locked on the trembling manager. "Proceed." The cafe seemed to tilt in that moment. The balance of power was shifting, no longer controlled by accusation or fear, but by truth slowly being revealed. Everyone could feel it. Something irreversible was about to happen. The restaurant had shifted into something far more than a dining room. It was a stage. Every table, every booth, every corner now held raised phones, little red recording lights blinking like judgmental eyes. A storm of witnesses had formed, dozens of them capturing every word, every insult, every second. No corner of the room was safe for silence anymore. The manager, still flushed and trembling, barked at them. "Put those phones down. This is private business." But her words rang hollow. Customers ignored her. A woman near the window whispered, "Private? In front of 50 people with cameras?" A young man standing by the bar said louder, "Nah, we're not putting anything down. People need to see this." The black man did not need to ask for it, but the crowd had chosen him. Their lenses followed his calm face, his steady breath, his silence that screamed louder than her fury. Every insult she had thrown, every bill she had scattered like trash, it was all being documented in real time. The police officer shifted uncomfortably now. He was no longer in control of a quiet report or a routine removal. He was standing in the center of 100 digital witnesses. His radio crackled in his hand, but he hesitated. He knew one wrong move would not stay in this room. It would live online, dissected frame by frame. The manager, desperate, turned toward him. "Do your job. Get him out." Her voice cracked. It was not authority anymore. It was panic. The officer's jaw tightened, but he did not move forward. Too many eyes, too many cameras. From the back, a teenager shouted, "We got you, man. Keep standing." Another voice joined. "This is 2025. They cannot bury this." Someone else added, "Record from different angles. They always say context is missing. Not this time." Phones shuffled higher, pointed like weapons made of light. The black man finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "I told you earlier, I would not need to raise my voice, and I was right, because now the entire room is speaking for me." Applause broke out from one corner, scattered at first, then growing. Some clapped, some shouted, some simply kept filming in silence, but all of it was a wave, rolling toward the manager, stripping her of control. Her eyes darted from face to face, but every face was against her. She tried to grab the counter for balance, but even the wood beneath her palms seemed to reject her grip. She whispered, almost to herself, "This can't be happening." But it was, and every single camera was proof. The air inside the restaurant had transformed into something electric, Phones hovered like a forest of eyes, each one recording, each one ready to carry the truth far beyond these walls. The manager's power shrank with every second. Her voice was no longer a command, it was a plea no one wanted to hear. And then, with the world watching through dozens of screens, the man in the blue hoodie finally lifted his phone again. He pressed a single button, calm as ever. A woman's voice answered instantly on speaker, crisp and professional. "Yes, sir. All systems are ready. Do you wish to confirm your identity?" Every head turned. Customers whispered, "Sir?" The manager froze, her eyes narrowing, a faint tremor betraying her fear. She forced a laugh, sharp and hollow. "What is this? Some prank? Some fake call?" He did not flinch. "Patch it through." The line clicked, and another voice came on, this one deeper, steadier, corporate. "This is headquarters. We are confirming the presence of the majority shareholder of Pinnacle Dining Group. Authentication required. Please state your authorization." Gasps erupted. A man in the back nearly dropped his phone. "Majority shareholder?" a college student whispered. "That means he owns this." The manager's smirk collapsed. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The officer stepped back as if the floor itself had shifted. The man in the hoodie spoke 3 simple words into the phone. "Authorization Black Alpha." A chime sounded. The corporate voice replied, "Confirmed. Ownership authenticated. Proceeding with your directive, sir." How? The cafe exploded with noise. Shouts of shock, applause, laughter at the manager's expense, all of it crashed together like a tidal wave. Dozens of phones caught every second, broadcasting it live. The manager staggered backward, pale as chalk. "No, no, this is not possible." Her hands gripped the counter, but the counter could not hold her dignity in place. "You are lying. You cannot be." He cut her off with a single sentence that echoed louder than her shrieks. "You just accused the owner of theft in his own restaurant." The crowd erupted again, louder than before. Applause thundered, cheers broke out. Some shouted, "That is justice." Others laughed in disbelief. The teenager near the bar screamed into his live stream, "He owns the place. She humiliated the boss in front of the whole world." The manager's knees buckled. The officer stepped aside, no longer a participant but a witness. His eyes lowered, avoiding the cameras aimed his way. And at the center of it all, the man in the blue hoodie stood unmoved, calm, silent, unshaken. The storm had revealed him, and the truth was now undeniable. Every lens caught the same image, the false accuser crumbling, and the quiet power of the man she tried to erase. The revelation shattered the last thread of control the manager thought she held. The crowd's reaction roared around her, each clap and cheer striking like a verdict. Her face drained of color as she realized the humiliation was no longer his, it was hers. Every phone in the room was a mirror reflecting her downfall back at her. The man in the blue hoodie turned slightly, his calm presence commanding silence without raising his voice. He lifted his phone again. "Freeze her access. Effective immediately." The same corporate voice answered crisply through the speaker. "Confirmed. Terminating local managerial credentials. Lockout in progress." A sharp electronic beep rang from behind the counter. The manager's badge, clipped neatly at her apron, flashed red. She tapped it against the system in desperation, but the screen glowed with the words, "Access denied." She tapped it again, harder, then slammed it against the reader, but the result was the same, "Access denied." Gasps echoed through the cafe. A customer near the front shouted, "He just fired her on the spot." Another added, "This is going viral. Nobody is surviving this." The officer looked at her, then at him, realizing the balance of authority had flipped entirely. He muttered under his breath, "She is done." The man did not stop. His voice was steady, commanding, "Remove her from payroll. Begin legal audit of her conduct today. Document every insult, every action." The corporate voice replied, "Logged. Audit has been initiated." The manager stumbled backward, her hands trembling as the truth sank in. She was no longer an enforcer. She was the accused. She whispered, "Please, wait. I was only protecting policy." But her words were weak, hollow, drowned beneath the applause and the chorus of witnesses recording her collapse. The barista who had defended him earlier stepped forward, her voice rising above the noise. "Policy does not sound like hate. Policy does not throw money on the ground. That was you." The crowd erupted again, nodding, some clapping harder. The manager's desperation cracked. She shouted wildly at the customers, "Stop recording! Stop filming!" But the room only raised their phones higher. Dozens of screens glowed, capturing her downfall in real time. The man in the blue hoodie closed his case with a soft click, the sound final, like a judge's gavel. His eyes locked on her trembling figure. "You tried to strip me of dignity in front of strangers. Now your own actions will strip you of everything you thought was yours." The room cheered. Phones caught every angle. Some laughed, some shouted in satisfaction, others simply shook their heads in disbelief at the spectacle unraveling before them. And the manager, once loud and sure of herself, stood frozen in shame, her badge useless, her authority gone. The verdict had already been delivered quietly, efficiently, and irrevocably. The restaurant had transformed into a chorus of voices. Applause rang against the walls, camera flashes lit the air like lightning, and the sound of dozens of live streams carried the story out into the world beyond those doors. The manager stood small, broken, her badge flashing useless red, the word "access denied" glowing like a scarlet letter for all to see. The man in the blue hoodie did not raise his hands in triumph. He did not gloat. He simply stood, still and steady, his presence alone commanding the room. When the noise quieted just enough, he spoke, his voice low but carrying to every corner. "You thought silence was weakness. You thought throwing money at my feet would make me bow. But silence was never surrender. It was patience. Patience for the moment when the truth speaks for itself." The officer lowered his radio, finally stepping back, his posture resigned. The crowd did not look at him anymore. He was no longer the authority in the room. Every eye, every lens, every voice now followed the man who had been accused only minutes before. He continued, his words deliberate, each one cutting deeper than any shout could. "Dignity is not granted by you. Belonging is not permission you get to hand out. I belong here because I built this place. I belong here because it is mine." The applause swelled again, some people rising from their seats, clapping so hard their hands reddened. A teenager at the bar shouted into his phone, "He just said it, this is his restaurant, he owns it." Another voice echoed, "This video is going to break the internet." The manager tried once more, her voice cracking. "Please, I did not know. I thought—" But her words collapsed under the weight of her own prejudice. A woman near the window cut her off sharply. "You thought wrong, and the whole world will see it." He turned slightly, his eyes sweeping across the room. Justice does not need to shout. It does not need to humiliate. Justice is truth, revealed at the right time. Today, you all witnessed it. The crowd erupted one last time. Phones caught the moment from every angle. The calm black man standing tall, the fallen manager shrinking into shadows, the officer powerless, and the audience transformed into a wave of witnesses to dignity. He picked up his briefcase, closed it with a final click, and walked toward the exit. No rush, no hesitation, just calm steps that seemed to echo louder than any applause. The crowd parted for him, some reaching out to shake his hand, others whispering "thank you" as he passed. At the door, he stopped for one final sentence. His voice was steady, certain, unforgettable. "Remember this. Power does not come from volume, it comes from truth, and the truth will always rise." Then he left, leaving behind a room buzzing with awe, shame, and a story that would live far beyond the walls of that restaurant. The video was already spreading, and his silence had already won.